Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to go through a list of manga, comics, video games, and TV shows that I don't plan to continue on with. And it's not that I think a lot of these are absolutely terrible and that they're a waste of time and that nobody should check them out. It's just that they didn't work for me and I would rather spend my time exploring different stories. But in talking about why they didn't work for me, on one hand, it could be entertaining for you. It could be helpful and informative for you to determine whether or not you want to check these things out. And it could also be kind of cathartic if you didn't like them to also see somebody else who's not really as invested. So I'm going to start with some adaptations, and I don't want to discourage people from watching these because I know a lot of people really love them, but that would be Witcher and Wheel of Time. Witcher is something I've been a fan of, like a lot of people, since the Wild Hunt video game, which is the third by CD Projekt Red that is exploring the Witcher world, and their adaptation was a what-if scenario. What would happen after the events of Sapkowski's books? And for a long time, a lot of people thought that the books were actually written after the games because they, like me, came to the story through the video game. They thought that the books were kind of a after effect of the success of the games. But of course that wasn't true. And to this day, I think The Witcher 3 is the best version of that story. I say The Witcher 3 specifically because I've only played some of the second and I never had the opportunity to play the first. But regardless, I was ecstatic for the Witcher adaptation on Netflix. I had always hoped it'd be animated. Nobody ever seems to want to go that route. But they chose live action, and I didn't think that they did the best of jobs with it. I know they were trying to adapt the source material while still trying to please fans of the game, and I just don't think that it's come together in a way that I find particularly satisfying. There are the occasional episodes that I think are really good, and there are aspects to the show that I think are really good, but the negatives just have made it so it's not something I want to continue on with. I don't want to feed into what I think is actually really unhelpful, to put it politely, unhelpful rhetoric that I have seen from some individuals, a lot of individuals, about this show and the people involved in the show. For me, I just didn't think that it was very good. That's what it comes down to. And for that reason, even though I have seen some positive things about the newest season, I, one, don't care that much, and two, they're entering some of the worst portions of the books, in my opinion. This next chunk, I don't care for, and so I don't really care to see it adapted either. Anyway, moving now to Wheel of Time. I have heard that the second season is an enormous improvement upon the first from a lot of people in my personal life, and I've seen that same thing expressed from a lot of individuals online. However, I didn't like the first season at all. I basically liked very little about that first season, and I don't know that even if it gets a lot better, that the things that I didn't like about it, I really just don't think those are going to change because they're pretty fundamental to the world itself, the characters, the way in which they're choosing to tell the story, the special effects. Unless it basically turned into a different show, I just don't think it's ever really going to appeal to me personally. But I am really excited for people that are fans to see that it seems to have improved so much from the first season, because that's really exciting. That's what a lot of us want as fans of anything that gets adapted. We want the adaptation to be good. We want it to bring in new fans. We want people to understand the love that we have for that series, because people often gravitate toward different mediums, and so the more mediums that you can tell the story on, the better. So I am happy that it seems it is getting better and better, but it's just not one that I think is ever really going to be for me. So I'd rather spend my time exploring other things. Next up, we have Forspoken. I was excited about this game for years. As soon as I saw the trailer for it, I thought it looked like so much fun. I consistently talked about how the literal movement of the character, the way they traverse the land, looked fun, because I'm a big fan of that actually in games, when it's just fun to move. I don't know if that makes any sense, but there's certain games that whenever there's a flying component, you could say, like Immortals, Phoenix Rising, and Zelda, those types of games where you can just climb and then just float off of stuff. That kind of thing, I don't know what it is. I just think it's so much fun. Any kind of game like the old Prince of Persia games, when you're like running across the walls and stuff like that, it's just fun. I just really like it. And so for that reason alone, I was excited for the game. But I also just thought it looked fresh and unique and different from a lot of things I had seen before. And the end result ended up being so boring. I played through quite a few hours of that game, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to play this anymore, because I understand some games take a while, especially story-driven games, and you have some scenes where it's like you're somewhat moving through a cutscene in a sense, and so it doesn't really have that thing I was just describing where the movement is fun. But I kept waiting for this to get to a point where it was exciting to play. It felt too empty, it didn't feel smooth, I felt like the combat was awkward, and it just was a big swing and a miss for me, which was really disappointing because I was really excited about that game. Next up, oh man, speaking of disappointing, I think this is my most unpopular opinion of the year, which is that I did not like 20th Century Boys. I didn't like anything about it. That's all I really have to say. I don't want to dwell on this because I picked it up not that long ago, so I've kind of touched on this in recent videos. I know this is a staple among a lot of manga fans they're reading, and it's one of their all-time favorites, but my goodness, nothing. The more I read, the more frustrated and annoyed I was getting. I didn't like the characters, I didn't like the plot, I wasn't finding myself intrigued, I didn't care. I feel really bad because I really wanted to love this one, and I really thought I would. My husband really likes it, a lot of my friends really like it, and it sounded interesting. I just couldn't care less about anything that was happening. I don't anticipate that I'll come back to it, and this one I'll reserve a maybe for, because if I hear that it gets exponentially better, then I'll give it a shot. But in talking to my husband about all the things more in depth that I didn't really care for, he's like, I don't think that you're gonna like this because it's just kind of more of what you don't like. And I was like, all right, so it might just be one that Sean loves, and a lot of other people, of course, but not me. Silver Spoon is next. I love Full Metal, it's no secret, one of my all-time favorite series of all time, to repeat myself. It's in my top 5 favorites for completed series. I love it. It's fantastic. I can't wait to rewatch the show. I have reread the manga, but I wouldn't be opposed to rereading it again. I love it. 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 But Silver Spoon, very different, which I didn't mind. I actually was really excited to see sort of the slice of life farm school, agricultural school. But I just didn't find I was connecting all that much to it. It did have a lot of Arakawa's signature humor, but some of the humor actually wasn't landing. I didn't actually like some of it, and I just wasn't finding myself wanting to continue. This one I am especially reserving the maybe someday for, because maybe I will come back to it and continue further on, but as of right now, there's just so much manga that I would like to get to, and this is not a high priority. From there, we have, this one's a maybe too. Castlevania Nocturne. If you saw my review, you know I did not care for that season. And I loved the original. I say original referring to the first of Netflix's adaptations. I know that it is actually from a video game, but I liked the other, and this was not that, which I was fine with. I wasn't expecting it to be. I expected the tone to be different, the characters to be different, even the style to be different, but I was hoping it still would have the depth that I personally felt like we got with the, I'm going to keep calling it the original, just for clarity's sake. I thought we would get the same amount of depth, and to me, it wasn't reaching those really powerful moments, the cool philosophical debates that you saw, those kind of slower moments that we would have in the original. And I do think they were a little self-indulgent with some of their monologues in the first, but this just really felt more like fun action adventure, which is completely fine. Kind of dark action adventure. But I thought about continue on after the ending because if you know, you know. The ending, you know. But I'm like, do I care? I really don't know if I care. So I might continue on. I might not. If people tell me, hey, listen, it gets so good, then I will continue on, because the original, the first season's very short, but I didn't really like it. And then I kept going and I loved it. And that second season was phenomenal. Dracula's plotline, everything with Alucard and Dracula, oh my gosh, so emotional. So if we do get some of that in the next season, I will take this all back and I'll be like, yeah, I watched it and oh my gosh, so good. And I will happily say, even if you're like me and you didn't love that season, check out the next season, it's so good. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm just not in a hurry to... The hype of the ending has died down is really what I'm getting at. After that, we have some Brian K. Vaughan, and that would be Y the Last Man. I have expressed pretty bluntly that I found the main character so unbearable and unlikable that I can't continue on with that series despite liking everything surrounding the character. I think that the concept is fascinating. I think the way Brian K. Vaughan is exploring the concept is fascinating. It's brutal. In some ways, it feels very realistic. But that main character, I just am like, I can't do it. I can't keep reading from this idiot. And then Paper Girls is just, it's not Paper Girls' fault. I thought that the dialogue was hilarious and snappy and realistic and very raw, you could say, and unpolished, which is how I feel people are. So I like the dialogue in Paper Girls, but it's just the setting just doesn't work for me for whatever reason. I expressed this when talking about wanting originally to keep going with it, and then when I tried to keep going, I'm like, I just don't really like this plot. I've said that it's part of why I just know I probably won't like Stranger Things. There's just something about this aesthetic that I find off-putting, but it's not fair to the story. It's a me thing. And I know it's dumb, just to be clear. And then at the end of this, we have Solo Leveling. I read a few volumes of this, and it was what the name says. It's a character that is leveling up, and that's the gist of it. And I kept kind of wanting to start to see some depth. I don't really feel like that's what Solo Leveling is, though. It's awesome. It's all about the character becoming really powerful and then just leveling up continuously and then defeating stronger and stronger things. I don't know if maybe way later you start to see more depth. I kept thinking, okay, we're starting off with just this kind of general plot. We're setting everything up, and then eventually we're going to get more into this relationship he has with his family members, and we're going to see more of these other side characters, and it just felt like almost Monster of the Week, which is fine. It's just not what I was wanting from it. And I think if you are looking for something that's just pure awesome, then Solo Leveling is a good fit, but I wanted a little bit... I wanted it to be something else that it wasn't. That's it, though, for some DNFs for this year. I'm very curious, are you in the same camp with any of these? Do you feel similarly? And what are some things that you, as much as you want to love it, they just haven't been working for you? But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.